Good morning, everyone. Did you enjoy the storm? Aren't you glad you weren't on the porch? And did you enjoy the fresh air when you got up this morning? How sweet it was? Yeah. It's beautiful. I did something this morning that I want to invite all of you to do at some point today before you leave campus. Are all of you leaving today, or are some of you staying over tonight? Anybody staying over tonight? Okay. So, but before you leave then, what I did this morning was I went into the 37 Bodhisattva Practices Garden, the meditation form, and I did my recitation there. And it was very meaningful. I'm standing in front of each of those stones, and I feel a resonance with everybody else who stood there and done their recitation in front of the stones. So rather than read together today, I would like to invite each of you to go out individually, perhaps at lunchtime, with a hat on, right? Or before you leave, and as you drive away or whatever, you think, oh my gosh, I forgot, and turn around and come back and do it before you go. If you will, it will be very good for you. You'll take with you an impression that's a little different from just the recitation on the basis of the book, of the text sitting in the book, okay? And the lettering is exquisite on those stones, isn't it? It's very refined. The way it's carved in is very refined. And then I noticed that all around there were holes where insects and other critters are living right there. And I'm sure it's everywhere also, but I think, well, this one's in front of this stone. I wonder about the relationship of having your home right under a stone on which the 37 practices are engraved. And I think, well, I can think of that my head is sometimes like a dull stone, like a dull rock, but it's certainly these verses are inscribed there very deeply. And so I can think that I live that way too, really close to the heart of this practice. And because I have the example of the consummate, irreplaceable Lama Garchen Rinpoche for the embodiment of these verses, I feel as if I'm in that garden all the time with those stones around. But the physical experience of it is different from the memory of it. Just please take some time to do that for yourself. And of course, dedicate that practice to all. Okay? Are you happy being this far away? If you can come closer if you want. You're good? Okay, good. Let's do our opening prayers so that I don't launch first, and we'll put the prayers in the right place here. We'll do the same ones that we did yesterday. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. And then page 5. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Was that 3? That's good. And then we'll do the mandala offering. This is the gesture, in case you want to see it. Yeah. So like this, and then turning it inside out, the fingers interlaced, and then with your 2 thumbs, you hold and pull down slightly the 2 little fingers. The next fingers you bring up into a peak, that's Mount Meru. And then with your index fingers, you grab the next finger like this and bring it down. These are the 4 directions. Can you all see it? Do you all know it? You have it? Okay, good. And then, of course, if you have to turn the pages, you take it apart and then you put it back together again. The first time I was taught this by my first Lama, he was showing me and putting some pressure on it so I would get it really in the right position. And I said, ouch, that hurts. And then he pushed harder. We're offering everything, including our pain. Okay? So, an infinite array of worlds, each with 4 continents and the wealth of infinite oceans of realms. If I bring them all to mind and offer them without exception, please hold with compassion all the beings they contain. My body, enjoyments, and whatever I own, my aggregates, elements, and sense sources, my aspirations now and in times to come, as well as everything I grasp as mine. By offering them all, may I be blessed with the end of self-grasping. Completely liberated from the bounds of real and unreal, transcending the names and concepts of arising, cessation, and abiding, coming and going, affirmation and denial, the Supreme Mandala is the natural state. By offering it, may I be blessed to attain the state of Buddhahood. Om Guru Deva Dakini Ratna Mandala Pratitsa Soha. The sentence here that has the opposites in terms of concepts, yes? Arising, cessation, and abiding, and so on, and coming and going, ends in the Supreme Mandala is the natural state. I like also the inversion of that as a reminder for us. The natural state is the Supreme Mandala. For us to rest in the natural state, resting our mind in its true nature, that is the supreme offering. In other words, we become the mandala, yes? And there is a practice called the body mandala. If those of you who are doing these kinds of studies in the Vajrayana want to study about that, you can. But at any time you want to make the full mandala offering, say for example, you're out demonstrating or protesting about something, and you end up with your hands behind your back in handcuffs. You can offer, you can't make the mandala gesture as we just did, but you can offer your entire body and all your possessions and all the glories of this and all lifetimes for the liberation of all. I know that's a sort of an unexpected example, but I was trying to think of, well, when would we have our hands behind our back like that? And there can never be too many times in a given lifetime or even a given day or a given half hour that you offer everything that you are and have and might ever become for the liberation of all. I had cancer some long time ago, actually, when I was in my 40s, and on the gurney going into the surgery room, big surgery, big mandala offering, I offered the whole thing. And I went in with a sense of lightness that nobody in the room could really comprehend. They were all saying, don't be afraid, don't be worried. No fear here. Everything's been given away. There's nothing to hang on to, so there's no fear. And it is liberation in the instant for us, that full and complete offering. So get in the habit of, again, the Lama who said, too bad it hurts, I'm going to push a little harder. He also taught me, when you see something that you think is beautiful along the side of the road of plant, a thistle that everybody sees as an invader, for example, oh, they're so beautiful. You know, you see something beautiful and immediately you offer it to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or to all sentient beings, but first to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, then to all the sentient beings. And get in the habit of that, of not mine, ours. It's for all. Yeah? Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. I want to add to our prayers this morning, on page 9 begins just four communications to the Guru. Namo, to the Guru, the utter purity of all appearance and existence, I offer all appearance and existence, arisen as the primordial ground. I supplicate you, may the three realms be completely liberated. Please grant blessings to empty samsara from its depths. Lord with 5 omniscient wisdoms, crown ornament, kind one with loving nature, precious protector of beings, heart of all Buddhas, inexpressible by words of thought, I supplicate you from the core of my mind. Bless me from within the state of Dharmata. Bless me to realize this mind, primordially pure and unborn, as the unfathomable Dharmakaya. Dharmata is the state of reality as it is, and the unborn, unfathomable Dharmakaya is the ultimate state.
Somebody has that tattooed on their arm. Here it is.
Who has a tattoo on there?
That says "as it is." Oh, neat. Yeah. That's from
I'm sorry, I'm not able to understand the words. You have a tattoo of what?
I have "as it
Do you have to look in the mirror in order to see it, or can you see it?
I just know
It's tattooed on your mind.
no one's ever known what that was.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay. Then the request for the teachings. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the greater and lesser vehicles and the teachings common to both according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. And those of you who don't have a copy of this for yourselves, take one with you when you go. They're our gift to you. They're actually Garchen Rinpoche's gift to us all. I want to speak from the heart. Actually, that's the only place I really speak from. But specifically at this moment about aspiration. In the conventional way that we use the word, it may apply to conventional or mundane intentions or aspirations. You know, that I aspire to become a great poet or something like this. In that frame, the aspiration, if it's one that's positive, not I aspire to take over a country, but if it's something that's positive, has a lifting function. It lifts our sights, and it's very related to the breath, right? To aspire, to inspire, to respire, to expire ultimately. In the spiritual life, shall we say, or on what we sometimes call the spiritual path, or on the way, the spiritual aspiration is essential. It is not talked about as much as I would like to hear it talked about, but it is an essential aspect of our minds orienting to ultimate purpose, for the ultimate benefit of all, to liberate all from ignorance and establish all in the true nature, the ultimate. So to form in your intention, in your own words, the ultimate aspiration, I urge you to do that. I urge you to do that. Because if you don't, you won't be following it. You'll have a kind of sporadic relationship of fidelity to it. When you think about it, you'll say, "Oh, yes, I do aspire that to become a liberator of beings." But if it's not there all the time, front and center, top of mind, it is not ruling you. And the highest aspiration is bodhicitta, is the intention, the aspiration, and then the actual intention acted upon to attain full liberation and realization oneself in order to become a liberator of beings, in order for others to be liberated by your actions and your prayers and your supplications. So that is like the pony is beautiful and running free. The mane is loose and moving beautifully in the air. But if we want to ride the horse, we have to let the pony grow up, understanding, this is a metaphor that has not come to my mind before, and what comes out of my mouth, we'll see. If I end up in the corral or out in the woods, I have no idea where this is going. Actually, that's not true. There's a certain taming of the mind that we speak of in the Dharma, and it usually applies to taming our negativities, taming our confusion, taming our habituated tendencies, and so on. In other words, taming that unbridled self, that happy pony that thinks everything is fine as long as it gets what it wants. But the true taming is bodhicitta itself. That when we give ourselves to that ultimate aspiration to become liberators of beings by liberating ourselves, and we're the only ones who can do that. We are our own liberators. Nobody's doing that for us. That taming is so paradoxical. It's the taming that comes through our freedom. Do you understand what I mean? As we free ourselves from the grasping to the illusion of self, we are doing that through cultivating our love and compassion for others. That's the vehicle that tames that unbridled self-grasping. And when the self-grasping is being tamed by antidotal or radical ultimate kinds of method, that is also freeing the natural, unbridled, totally free, unfettered celebration mind of love without limits and compassion without limits. So the root cause of all suffering is self-grasping, is that grasping to that erroneous concept, as we spoke about yesterday. Do you remember that conversation? Yeah. And so that is the root cause. Any form of suffering, that's at the root. And we think, well, it is so ingrained. How would I ever begin to uproot that? Well, the key is the commitment to and the acting on with body, speech, and mind, with intention, aspiration, and then action in body, speech, and mind to generate bodhicitta, compassion and love, and always to be increasing them, lifting them ever higher and higher. So as our love and compassion grow, our self-grasping diminishes. And as our self-grasping diminishes, our love and compassion grow. This is the way it works. This is the way it works. So there's no way not to pay attention to that, because that's the way it works. And if what you desire is the liberation of all, you will have to liberate yourself from that being a selfish desire for you. Expand it, always. As I said yesterday, always the aspiration and the intention are embedded in their benefit for all. Yeah? So everything is an offering of the self, and offering one's self-grasping for the liberation of all. Give that away. You think that's your most precious possession, yourself, your notion of self. Your most precious possession forever is your bodhicitta, your love and compassion for others. There is a plaque outside that says, that in Rinpoche's words, that bodhicitta is the sole cause of enlightenment. The sole cause. There are many who have been practitioners for a long time in methods of meditation that are very quieting and calming and very peaceful and very beautiful. And the practices are lovely, and people give their energy to these kinds of practices for their whole lives, and really the accomplishment is beautiful. You have a certain serenity. I'm speaking on the basis of rumor here and observation, not on the basis of my own experience, but there's a certain serenity that you can feel when you're with people who have these kinds of practices well in hand. And in these practices, one of the great fruits is that serenity, and another is the penetrating insight into the nature of emptiness, and then the sense of serenity really becomes quite vast, and sometimes, even people who consult with me have sometimes reported, I have reached quiescence. I've attained non-thought. I've attained quiescence. And my meditative experience is that I experience myself one with all in a very peaceful state. And you could feel envious of that, or you could say that this is also what you want. And it certainly results in great kindness, great gentleness and generosity and goodness of heart with others. I'm in no way denigrating these practices. They are exquisite, and they're a base. They're a very important base for all practices that move upward from there. But without bodhicitta, there is no ultimate enlightenment. That's the key. So, let your mind just allow that to settle in your mind and in the way you think about the spiritual path. Your ultimate accomplishment is not going to depend on having lovely meditative experiences, however refreshing and beneficial they may be. It's going to depend on your generating, cultivating, and continuously enlarging and deepening your capacity for compassion and love. And the reason this is the case is, and the reason that Gacha Rinpoche said you won't actually be able to really meditate unless you do have limitless love and compassion or vast love and compassion, is because the ultimate of meditation is non-duality, is resting in the true nature. Yes? That's the meditation we're longing for. And the false grasping to self and the stranglehold of duality, they dissolve in love, in which self ceases to exist as a dominant entity. I mean, there is still a person in the world, and still there's what I call the agentic self, the agency of operations to carry out a life that's viable so that you're not a basket case, hauled away to the state mental asylum because you can no longer function. It's not about that. We are really, we can experience as we go the diminution of the grasping to self and the increasing transparency of that notion of self. We can experience that for ourselves. We can see that it's happening. So this is not some myth I'm recounting to you. This is practice and its fruit. And the practice of bodhicitta, the cherishing of bodhicitta, the nourishing of your bodhicitta, the working out of your bodhicitta, not in the sense of resolution, but the sense of real workout, that is how you will progress upon the path. I can't think of a way to say this more strongly. I can't convince you, only your experience will convince you. But when you have begun to be convinced, then when you hear somebody saying what I've said, you will recognize conviction. You will find yourself that you are growing in certainty. Nobody can do anything for us in this sense. I mean, Buddha himself said, don't even believe what I have to say. Check it out for yourself. And if you meet a teacher who says, believe what I say and do what I say because that's the way, and you should do it because I say it, I wouldn't want to be in that situation. I'd want somebody to say, here's what we know to be true from our experience, but your experience is the only way it's going to be true for you, that you're going to come to recognize its truth for you, your own direct experience. And so that's why Rinpoche said to me at one point, as I mentioned yesterday, have confidence, have certainty with your own direct experience. And it's a good thing that nobody can do this for us. Because if we thought somebody could do it for us, we'd be relying on that person for it to happen. Instead, we rely on the guru or the teacher or the lineage, whatever we are cultivating our faith and confidence in, to give us words of truth, words that point us within to find the truth itself. Now, there's no within and no without, and so what we find within will be a mirror of what's without, and the same. But within, I use the word within, meaning in your own efforts, your own intention, your own development gradually of trust and confidence, although sometimes it can happen suddenly, as you and I touched on yesterday when we encountered each other on the path, so to speak. There can be a moment when you receive, through grace and blessings that we don't maybe even know the origin of. It often can come through the guru, through the lama, through the teaching stream, but it may come through an experience in nature. And I think many of us have had experiences of that kind where the non-dual state is suddenly arisen within us, and we abide there for a few moments with no doubt about what we're experiencing, that we are really, that there is no self in that moment, there is no other, there is all-pervading love and awareness. And I know many have that experience in nature, and I have had that also. So it can be fleeting. I want to speak of these kinds of experiences for just a second. The direct insight into the true nature, the direct insight into nature, what we call nature of mind, or the ultimate, that can be very fleeting. It can be, and we call it a glimpse sometimes. It can be just a glimpse and then gone. And that glimpse, that instant, can change the entire rest of your experience in this lifetime, if you will let it. Sometimes what happens is that one will have the glimpse, recognize it for what it is, because when you have a direct insight of that nature, it is not, there's no doubt that arises with that. It's not at that moment, it's not, oh, was that it? Was that what they were talking about? Is that the true nature of mind? It's, oh, there it is, where it always was, but now I'm seeing it. It's right there, no question. But then afterward, when you maybe in a week, maybe in a half an hour, that particular experience is no longer vivid and being lived directly, but it's still, the aroma is still, the fragrance is still there, the sensation is still there, and the memory hasn't changed. You remember vividly and clearly what you saw and I use the word saw, to see, meaning to register, not necessarily visual, although it's often very visual. But the fading of the glimpse, or the fact that the glimpse is not a lifetime of stable realization and recognition. A glimpse is by nature temporary, even ephemeral, like this. So what I did afterwards was spend a decade trying to get it back. I didn't have access to information about how to stabilize that, how to practice on that. I was on my own. I didn't have, or didn't know I could go to somebody to say, okay, now what? And so I got caught in the sorrow and the grief and the self-blame and the resentment, and I mean, all the poisons came surging up in service of enlightenment, mind you. Right? And what I learned from that is so valuable that I'm really glad that the decade of suffering happened, because in this room I can use it for you. And because what I understood then through that experience, or that series of experiences, was that the way we stabilize that direct insight is through bodhicitta. We stabilize it by living it forth. Instead of trying to recreate the experience or to get it to happen again, we live forth what that experience has shown us. Live it forth. Do you understand what I mean by that, to live it forth? You take what you've seen as the blueprint. You take what you have directly realized and recognized as truth, clear as a bell, truth, and you live that. In other words, you take it literally. You live it, and you live it for the benefit of others. That's how you stabilize your realization. And there can be many glimpses, and they might all be somewhat different, but you'll recognize when there's certainty, there's certainty. Remember then that your work is simply to bring it forth, to live it, just as it's been shown to you. You live it. In some native traditions, indigenous traditions on this continent, there's the practice of the vision quest. Some of you've probably heard that term, the vision quest. When in different cultures, it's different forms, but you go for a period of time and you do ceremony and prayer and practice, and then you're calling to see a vision. In fact, you're calling to have direct insight into the nature of reality. That's what you're calling for. And you're calling to see your destiny and so on. So you're calling for vision, and when vision comes, then in one tradition that I've read about, then the vision seeker goes down from the mountain to the medicine person, recounts the vision, and then is told, now make it real, which is the same thing I mean when I say live it forth. Now make it real. And in that culture, to make it real was to create a drama, a physical drama of it, with people acting out the different parts and the different aspects of the vision that you saw. In other words, you choreograph it, and you make it real because you're stomping on with your feet on the ground. So you're using the earth as a drum. You're sounding it forth. People are speaking the words that are given them to speak, and they have the interactions and the dances and the different play of the different elements of the vision are brought forth to make it real. And it's the same teaching. Do you see what I mean? It's the same teaching. Live it forth. So you're not given it so that you can then just sit and find it and create it over and over again. You don't create it. You didn't create it in the first place. You recognized it. It was never not there. Maybe you had to go up the mountain to see it, but it was also in the bathroom that you just left. That which is. It is not ever not. You see why people have to make poems and stuff? Or some kind of quirky visual thing. It's like, I'm pointing, can you see? That's all we can do then, is we love and we point. But released from confusion. We love inescapably and implacably and irretrievably, and we point very specifically. So, to love and to point, that's I've never read that in the Dharma, but it's not a bad way to sum it up. So I want to mention something else about aspiration, and this is to help you with your aspirations. Let me just refresh here. There's a very interesting book that came out, I'm not sure whether it was last year or the year before, by an American man who took a journey to Nepal to research the life of a tertun, a treasure discoverer, a Tibetan Buddhist Lama of great merit in the tradition of those who, to whom is given the gift of being able to retrieve from the earth or from space or from mind treasure texts or objects that have been placed by Guru Rinpoche, Guru Padmasambhava, principally, to be retrieved at the time they're needed. Way in the future, quite often. And these great beings are called tertuns, treasure discoverers. And this tertun is from a lineage, the Lingpa lineage of the tertuns. His name is Tulshuk Rinpoche. The book is called A Step Away from Paradise. And it reads like an adventure novel in a sense, but it's the story of a person who had the sense of destiny because of his lineage and his accomplishments, to be able to discover a certain kind of hidden place, a secret sacred space. And so he had, of course, the aspiration to do this because it had been shown to him and given to him also by prophecy as his destiny. So he experienced that this was his spiritual destiny, and he aspired to fulfill it for the benefit of all. And just at a personal level, he was in his lifetime he was a student of Marut Lama, also Dudjom Rinpoche. So I felt a sense of kinship with this tertun. He died in, I think, the 660s, I think it was. I don't remember the date of his death. I have it written down somewhere if anybody wants it. But so I had a sense of kinship with him, that he could have been a teacher of mine, or we might have been, we were Sangha, because we were both disciples of the same Root Lama. And so I was very curious to see how this all played out, and the story is written as a biography with a fair amount of drama in it and so on. But it's very clear that this is a man of great, of profound nature and profound integrity. And without going into too much detail, or really much more at all, I'll say that he, with the help of many, gradually a group formed to support his efforts in revealing this sacred hidden land, and they went on the journey to accomplish this. And just as it was about to happen, the doorway was opening, and as it was about to be fulfilled, he was killed in an avalanche that came thundering down, just picked him up and took him away. And I was left with a really important question. If our highest aspiration has guided us through our life, and yet it doesn't seem to have been fulfilled by the end, how do we think about that? So I had that question in my mind. I saw that in the story, there's certain people that were involved, and everybody came together, and everybody has different karma. It's not just his karma and his destiny, but all the support that was needed was of many people who had lots of different karmas and so on. So it's one of the core teachings in the Buddha Dharma is interdependence, yes? That everything arises based on cause and condition, and nothing is independently formed and stable, and everything comes and goes as causes and conditions change. Even if the karma is X to be fulfilled, it must be fulfilled by conditions of Y, Z, M, N, etc. So that's called conditioning, which we don't usually think of when we think about great beings with great karma and great destiny and great aspiration. And then, through the kindness of a friend, Molly, I received a book about written by Trungpa Rinpoche, her guru, whom I've also sat with under circumstances that were really amusing, and if there's time, I'll tell you. This book is about the practice of Medicine Buddha. You've heard of Medicine Buddha? Sangye Menla, and there are many names. Lapis lazuli is the color, he's sometimes called Sangye Lapis, Vaiduria. And a very interesting fact which I did not know about Medicine Buddha was that he enunciated 12 extraordinary aspirations during the time that his lifetimes as a bodhisattva. And Trungpa Rinpoche explains that these Buddhic accomplishments, the accomplishments that are fulfilled when one becomes a Buddha, are, and I'll use the word conditioned because he does, but it's a different meaning than we usually use it for. I think are conditioned, but principally, their impact, their benefits are conditioned principally by the aspirations that Buddha made when that Buddha was a bodhisattva in more than one lifetime, many lifetimes as a bodhisattva perhaps. But so and I'm going to make this very personal, when you become a Buddha, your Buddhic realm and your Buddhic palette from which you create for others will be arising in part from and conditioned, in other words, made possible in part from the aspirations that you've been making during your histories as bodhisattvas. Now, how's that for a little encouragement to work on your aspirations? The only way you're going to become a liberator of beings is to attain Buddhahood yourself. That's the essence of the bodhisattva commitment. And the only way to become a Buddha yourself is to generate limitless love and compassion, which is the essence of the bodhisattva commitment. So I would say, pay attention. Pay very close attention to this, because this is a teaching about the dynamics of enlightenment, if you will, of what happens, how it happens. So when we read that a certain Buddha has created a certain realm of pure accomplishment that beings can enter after death, well, how did that happen? Was it just meaning that their pure nature expanded into a realm? Maybe, I don't know. But the aspirations that those Buddhas made as bodhisattvas are what expand into their accomplishment and what they represent and what gifts and graces and blessings they convey to beings in the state of Buddhahood. So I didn't know this until these last few months, or this last year, in which I read that biography of Toshu Rinpoche, and I had that question in my mind: how does it happen that one has very high potential, almost certainty, and then it doesn't come together, it doesn't come to pass? How could that be? And then I started to look at the intersection of karma and aspiration. Not just my karma and my aspiration, but my aspirations and the karma of all who are involved with me. So the question was very ripe. So then when Molly sent me this book and I saw there were these 12 extraordinary aspirations, then I remembered something. And I've never spoken of this to anybody. So here we are on live stream. This is the secret. I've never spoken of this before. Although somebody might pop up and send me a note saying, yes, you did, you told me way back in, because I was discouraged, so you told me this story. So at one point I was in solo retreat. I think one of the reasons I'm telling you this is that yesterday in the evening when we gathered on the porch, and everybody was unmasked, and there we were, just naked. We had a meeting. It was so brief. The storm was right over our heads, practically. It was so brief, and yet something very refreshing happened. I don't know what your experience of it was. My experience of it was, we were sitting together as Sangha, and you were curious about my life and my circumstances, and did I know so-and-so, you know, and there were questions like that, but there were questions that were dharmic also, but we were gathering as if we just had forever to talk, and well, it turns out forever was, maybe that was forever in that moment. So, and we were gathering just open-hearted and no positions, no, you know, I was sitting on the steps above you, not because I'm above you, but because of COVID, you know, and it was very refreshing. And then this cold wind started to come. That was very refreshing, and I felt when I went back, and then this morning when I woke up and realized I wanted to speak about these aspirations, that you're thirsty for information of this kind about how it works. Is that right? Yeah, that was what I was hearing in the things you said last night. That not all of you may recognize that as thirst, but I recognize it as thirst. And maybe it's not true of all of you, but there was that energy there. And so I wanted to speak of something that is very private, but I'm consigning it to your memories, because I'll die before you do. But that doesn't mean I'm going to attain Buddhahood before you do, but just in case. I was on retreat, a long solo retreat in the deep of winter in Vermont. The snow so high that as I was shoveling it to go to places I had to go on the land to do my practices, it was the pathways were on the ground pretty much. There's snow, but the snow was shoulder high. I did a lot of shoveling that winter, but to get through, I had to keep shoveling them over and over again because it snowed all the time, and. So it was the deeps of winter. That, you know, that expression, the deeps of winter. It really was the deeps of winter, for physically as well. And everything comes up in solo retreat. At least, I mean, it needs to come up. Everything comes up that's ready to be dealt with, or ready to overwhelm you, or whatever. And there was fear coming up. I don't have a lot of fear, but I did at that time encounter a lot of fear. And I don't even remember any details, and not important. But I also, in that retreat, began to really take account of how difficult I was to tame. We talked about pride yesterday, and I mentioned that I'd been kicked out of my Sangha last night when we sat outside the porch. I take that as really, I'm very happy to share that information. People sometimes have terror that they might get kicked out by their teacher or kicked out of their Sangha. And I experienced it as an act of great courage and compassion on my teacher's part to sever me in that way. It was very good for the Sangha and very good for me. I never looked back. I sold my house immediately and took off, and it was very, very significant gift spiritually. But operative before the gift was given was a lot of pride on my part, otherwise we wouldn't have been at that impasse, right? So I recognized, I was reading a lot of Buddhist teachings, and I recognized the term taming over and over again, as I've used it this morning. We have to tame our minds. We have to let ourselves be tamed by the Dharma, by the Guru, and so on. Well, I recognized that I was anything but tamed, and you know what? I was taking a lot of pride in that. Right? I see more emphatic head nodding with that statement than I've seen all weekend. And then I thought of individuals whom I knew who were students and practitioners, who were really suffering and making it almost impossible to be helped. Maybe some of you have been in that condition at various times in your life, that you just really need help and you're really making it impossible for anyone to help you. So I saw that in myself as well. And I was broken by it in some way, broken by what I was seeing in myself, and broken by compassion for my teacher, for how hard it was on her, to try to help me. I hadn't seen that before. I only saw how hard she was being on me. But because I've been teaching for a very long time, and well, in this lifetime, and I know how hard it can be on the teacher to have the full-hearted devotion to the disciples' well-being and progress on the path, and be unable to help because the disciple is not yet really open to, not really open to that yet, asking but not receiving. And I made an aspiration. I didn't know anything about aspirations in Buddhahood at that point. I had no information except what I was directly experiencing of my own suffering, the suffering of others, and the imperative to help in every way we can. And so this aspiration spontaneously formed. It came out of my mouth. I then wrote it down so I know, because I might have forgotten it perhaps, but I didn't. The aspiration was this, and I'm charging your memories with this. In some lifetime, I will become a Buddha. And in that lifetime, perhaps one of you will be there, with me in some way, helping me to accomplish that, or being somebody who's just accompanying me on the path. But at some point I will become a Buddha. As I pray, at some point each of you will. It means you will see your true nature and fully abide in it, never to be dislodged. That's Buddhahood. And so I'm quite certain that you will accomplish that. I'm quite certain of that for myself. I'm quite certain of that for all of you, including Billy back there, who's behind the computer. But perfection is inevitable because it's already here. I want you, therefore, to remember that when I was a bodhisattva, I made this aspiration. And I want you to remind me of it if I'm not fulfilling it. Okay? That's why I'm telling you. The aspiration was this. When I become a Buddha, I vow to liberate those most difficult to tame. I will walk beside. That was it, verbatim. I will walk beside. I vow to liberate those most difficult to tame. I will walk beside. Okay? Did you all hear that? You wonderful, unnamed, unseen numbers out there in the world on the live stream. Hold me to account. Okay? And I'm telling you this because I want it to charge your own minds. That you start to really think in these terms. What are my aspirations? When I can fulfill my potentials fully, having attained Buddhahood, how do I want to do that? How will I be a liberator for beings? Okay? Yeah? Thank you. See you there. And I really recommend that you read the 12 extraordinary aspirations of Medicine Buddha. And I have here a copy of it that Molly made for me. Perhaps copies can be made of this for everybody who wants them. If you want them, maybe, I don't know whether you want to do that when you get home, to send it by email, because you have it now. Did you have it on your system, or did this from the book copy?
Yeah, I could send it to anyone who gives me their email.
Okay. You want that? So this is the chapter of the book that has the 12 aspirations in it. Yes?
We were going to do our email addresses, remember, and give them to you?
Yes, I'm asking that somebody nominate himself or herself to be the one who collects them. Okay. So Rosemary will gather the emails of everybody in the group. And Billy, do you want to be included on that list? Well, okay then.
And can I just add, Pam Marsden, who is on the live stream right now, may actually be the one to send it. Pam, so the email may come from Pam Marsden.
I didn't catch the last part. So you maybe want, but you can forward them to him. We don't have his request to give his email out.
Yeah. I just
Okay.
wanted to acknowledge.
You facilitate. Okay, good. That increases your merit. Because otherwise, if you just pass it, we want to increase your merit.
I just don't want to take her merit.
You just don't want to take what?
I don't want to take the merit from someone else.
No, you're just magnifying, not taking. Okay, so anyway, this I treasure. I have the book, but I'm going to keep it in this form because I might want to use it again that way. Okay, so it's a little after 10. I thought I talked for about 2 hours. I want to say something else here. Like, wipe the tears from my face here for a moment. At some point, I'm going to stop talking for a while. I don't mean this weekend. I mean in this life. And it's not going to be permanent, but at some point I'm going to take some time to just stop with the words for a while so that I can deepen and take the kind of nourishment that is needed. So Rinpoche said, if you're looking for me, I'm hiding behind this book, right? If you're looking for me, I'm hiding behind this book. And I'm not, this is not so I sell books. I'm never going to sell enough books to, to do anything with. This came out 5 minutes before the pandemic hit. I was about to go on a national book tour. You can imagine what happened. But these are my heart teachings on the 37 practices. And it is, the heartbeat of this book is what we talked about yesterday, is union. That in every instant, in every condition, we are a union of the ultimate and the relative. That's the pulse in this book, because that is the way of bodhisattva being. right? Summed up in the first phrases of the 37 practices. As I mentioned yesterday, that even though realizing that all phenomena neither come nor go, make single-minded effort for the benefit of sentient beings. Right? So it's ultimate realization and expression and activity in the realm of the relative, whether visible or invisible. I mean, one can, even without a body, one is a bodhisattva. And you don't have to be a human being to be a bodhisattva. You don't have to be a Buddhist to be a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva can take any form that's needed for the benefit of beings, any form or no form. Seriously, did you know that? We have a little human fixation, and then we have a little sentient being fixation, right? But there is actually no sentient being. Why is that? Because there is no self. The nature of things is open and empty like space. No ground, no substance. No center, no circumference. This is the form in which we operate in this dimension, in the reality dimension that we call existence. But beingness is infinite. We are in every instant a blend, a union of those two. The conceptualization that I just enunciated sounds very clear. To live it consciously, we have to practice. We have to keep practicing until the illusion begins to be penetrated by the truth and becomes transparent for us. Okay? If somebody says, no, it's not okay, you know what I'll do? I'll say, I'll see you when I become a Buddha. And then we'll talk about it again. I wasn't pointing directly at you, just that was where my hand was. But I will see you when I become a Buddha, and I will see you when you become a Buddha. So today, I would like us to practice. Yeah? So I'd suggest that if you need to take a break, this would be the good time to take a break, let's say 15 minutes max. And when we come back, I want us to train really. It's not, maybe we won't do it in Kuntuzanpo laps. I loved that yesterday, Claire. That was really great. But we can train in the methods and the way that they string together for practice. Okay? So I'll wait till you go out and then I'll go. So, just on the horse theme, you never can tell when those ponies are going to gallop in. You just don't know. There's one person not here yet. I think I better wait a minute. How close can you get to the ground and still be moving? Okay, so as we are about to begin our practice, let compassion mount the mighty steed of love and turn them loose. Manes streaming, churning flanks gleaming, eyes fierce with freedom, the whole lost feral herd will follow them home. Okay, so we're going to build we're not going to build anything. Forget that. There's some steps in a process that I want us to master, so that we have each step really clear, and they can be moved around. They don't have to be done in a certain order, but we'll give them in a certain order just so that it's clear. And we've touched them all already, but this is a chance to explore more fully, not more deeply, not more intensively, but more fully, the experiencing that that comes with the inward attention, cultivating the inward attention, resting in the center, whether we call it the center as in like the heart or the center of your being or the center of your energy, or whether we conceptualize it in some way as the central channel, which many of us might, and then the abiding there, and then we're going to practice clear awareness and original innocence, really same thing. I think that must have been probably clear, but we haven't talked a lot about clear awareness. But clear awareness is that that awareness that sees what is. In the ultimate sense, it is not other than that wisdom that sees what is. That the wisdom that is also clear awareness. And it's also the same as our ordinary awareness. There's no difference between them, which is a little hard to get as a concept since we have a kind of grandiosity concept about the ultimate. But the ultimate is right here, right now. We're not separate from it for a minute. We're not at all separate from it. The only thing missing sometimes is our actual recognition of it. Yes? So that's why in the experience of direct insight, a lot of people might say, and some of my friends have come to say afterwards, well, it was like, kind of trying to find words, and then right in my face, where it's always been, I just never noticed it before, I never saw it before. But we're never not seeing truth as it is. We're never not seeing that. It's always there, and we just don't recognize what it is we're seeing. So it's like getting a new pair of glasses, or getting your cataracts removed and replaced. Like, oh, there it is. That's why I say it's not doubt. There's no doubt involved. It's like if I'm looking at my face in the mirror, I'm not saying, "Is that my face?" Like I might say, "Oh no, is that my face?" But I'm not questioning what I'm seeing. It's obvious what I'm seeing. It's my face. The same when you see face to face. Yes, do you know that expression, seeing face to face? The same when you see directly, face to face, the ultimate nature of reality. Again, no doubt, it's not like, oh, is that the ultimate nature of reality? It's, oh, there it is, just where it's always been. Right here, right now. I just never saw it before. I've never recognized it, but seeing it all the time. It's all there is to see. Hello? There isn't anything else to see. What do you think about that? Don't answer me. Because then we'll get caught in words again. But so when I'm talking about clear awareness is your ordinary vision of, oh, here's the striker for the gong. I see it. I'm seeing it with clear awareness. And, oh, there's the true nature. I'm seeing that. Seeing it with clear awareness. Sawa, sawa, same, same. That either could leave you feeling like an idiot or like a genius. Don't choose. Just relax. Okay? So we're going to be practicing with clear awareness, and we could say we're practicing on clear awareness. This is the same capacity for insight that is in the practices at the heart of Kuntu Zangpo, because it's recognizing the confused emotion, yes, the poison arising, recognizing that, and then relaxing in the natural state is the way it's framed there, and I would say in the true nature or the natural state. And that's just recognizing also. Same thing. What sees confusion is clarity. What sees ignorance is wisdom. And what sees sleepiness is awakeness. That's another thing to remember. She's really interesting. Oh, I can't wait to hear the next thing she says. Oh my God, she's so brilliant. The Dharma is so beautiful. Oh, I see that. I'm falling asleep. Okay? There's nobody that says you have to take it so seriously all the time. Don't have to take it so seriously. It is display. All of this is display. At play. Okay, so when I spoke yesterday about inward attention, and we practiced a little bit with this very subtle gesture, just like that, no big deal. It just is a reminder and a kind of an energetic movement. And you can do that same movement with your mind. It doesn't require a physical gesture. It is a way of making precise the moment in which we apply the invitation to cultivate the inward attention, the attention that's not looking out and grasping at what's out there as appearances and our thoughts about them, but that is bringing mind to rest in mind. Listen carefully to the words, bringing mind to rest within mind. This is a teaching of Milarepa. When his student Bardar Bum came to him and said, I'm very good at this meditation that you're giving, Milaje. But, and so when you say to meditate upon the sky, I have a wonderful meditation. But then clouds arise, and my meditation isn't any good anymore. My mind is disturbed by the appearances. And Milaje says to Bardar Bum, let your mind rest within your mind. Gather mind within mind, let it rest there. That's the vow of non-excitement. essentially, in Milarepa's instruction. Bring mind within. That's this. This isn't just about looking and seeing. This is about gathering. So first it's to gather, then it's to rest there for a moment, then it's to glance within, and then it's to rest again. Okay, so that's where we're starting. Okay? And I'm going to use the gong. This is not a meditation. It's so you're not trying to have a certain state, a certain experience. Don't go with any kind of trying. Just a moment of intention that we're training so that we can be whole, basically, not jumping out. Not jumping out, and because we grasp not only to appearances, but particularly and most tenaciously to our concepts and our thoughts about appearances, within, or whether the appearances are emotions or, or people or whatever it may be. So to cultivate the inward attention is to withdraw, essentially, to draw within the attention that is normally fixated like this. Yes, is that familiar? Yeah. And so this gesture is just like a reminder, just like this. It's a reminder. Oh yes, come within, rest within. So the gong is so helpful. This is Garchen Rinpoche's gong, usually on Garchen Rinpoche's table, but today on mine. And so we'll imagine being called by this great Buddha to gather within, right? So for one gong, and then do the sequence that we have done already a couple times, just the intention, the gathering, and then once a sense of settledness there, of settling, then gaze within. So first it's a glance and a gathering, and then resting a bit, and then gazing within. So the mind stays within the mind. And when the mind leaps out, so you hear a sound and the mind leaps out, you think a thought, the mind leaps to the thought. You're looking up and you see me, you think whatever you think, but your mind is jumping out again. So then you just repeat, oh, let my mind stay within my mind. Okay? And so we'll just create a space here with the gong to do that sequence for a number of times. I'm doing it with you. It's part of my practice. This is what I do every time. And so just do that sequence at your own rate, and then at some point I'll double gong, okay? And then we'll come back to what we may call ordinary perception, or maybe not, yeah? Maybe we won't come back to that. Maybe we'll look up after the gong goes twice, and maybe at that point, as we look up, we actually have the mind still resting within the mind while we are also looking at outer appearances. And the eyes open, not staring, but just soft gaze. So in that experience, take a moment to check in with yourself. What happened when thoughts arose, when you became aware of thoughts or emotions or images or inner appearances? What happened in the mind? What happened?
I just returned to this. I just tried to return to the ground, the essence of this gesture.
So when thoughts arose, you found this useful? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I just did it not with my hand, but just...
With the mind?
Yes.
Yes. So you brought attention, you brought awareness in the channel, basically.
And then maybe kind of aligned my breath, like a deep breath as like the gesture instead of the hand.
Mm-hmm. And what happened?
I stopped engaging with the mind.
Mm-hmm. And what happened to those thoughts that were arising?
They just are living their own life separately, somewhere else. I don't care about them.
Gajahn Rinpoche said at one point, your thoughts are sentient beings. If you love them, you will liberate them all.
Okay, I set them free then.
There you go. Sometimes reconceptualizing gets closer to what's actually happening.
Okay.
So when we don't pay attention, when we don't involve ourselves with the thoughts, they return to their state. They arise as we do from the natural state. And the natural state is never apart. So when clear awareness meets an appearance, within or without, that appearance becomes one with clear awareness, which it always was, but a thought dissolves. When we don't engage it, it dissolves. But it's dissolving into its nature, which is not other than clear awareness. That is the natural state that Kuntuzangpa is talking about. Yeah? Any other comments about that? What happened when thoughts arose, or images, or whatever? Claire? Wait just a second. Hold on. Billy's gesturing. Oh, thank you. Yes. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah.
I'm wondering, or I started being curious if some of the thoughts that were arising were based in one of the 5 poisons, and because they seem so random, but I'm wondering if there's usefulness in trying to get a sense of the source of them, or beyond the form.
Well, I think it depends on what your intention is. If you're sitting in order to investigate the mind and how it functions, it can be very helpful to say, okay, here is one of the 5 poisons. How will I work with that? If that's part of the agenda. In this case, it was simply to cultivate clear awareness, and so as the thoughts arose, and clear awareness recognized them, if you didn't engage with further thought formation, they would dissolve. And so we have a choice of what we're doing, you know. So right now we're training in clear awareness, so it wouldn't be fruitful to investigate the nature of the thought form. That would be a form of engaging and perpetuating it. In other words, getting involved with the thought form. So.
Thank you.
That was what you asked? Okay, good. But you know, some of us, like Claire, and myself, have very active minds. I'm sure that's not true of the others of you. I think you're sitting there calmly and spaciously. So, but with an active mind, there can be really a lovely curiosity also. Oh, now I'm seeing what they talk about what it means when they talk about a mental poison. I'm seeing that. You know, let me investigate that. But at any moment, that's clear awareness that's recognizing that thought. At any moment, you can choose to engage the thought with clear awareness, or you can choose to let it dissolve in its own nature, which is clear awareness. You have the choice, and you can go back and forth. There's nobody with whip. Except you, perhaps, but you won't have to use it all the time. Yeah? So, one of the things that I find myself doing that I find very helpful is when I'm aware of thoughts, or I'm using thought as a generic. It doesn't necessarily mean a thought. It might be an image or an emotion or a bodily sensation. We'll call it an arising. At the moment that I notice an arising, it's usually been going on for a while. Right? It's not like, oh, there it is, I got it, It's, oh, there it is, and there I've been with it for a while, and now I'm noticing. It doesn't matter, it's fine. At any moment in the life, death, and life abiding and death of thought form, it can be liberated. So these are called the 3 times. The formation of a thought, a concept. Imagine it like a bell curve. You know what a bell curve is? It goes like this. Yeah? And so the first stage is the beginning. Something is nudging. You can feel that there's something forming. We're not usually alert enough to catch that. But it is catchable. We can see that. We can sense it. When you're looking for it, you'll find it. Now that you know that happens, right? And then here it mounts up. At this point, we might be aware that maybe, let's use anger, we might be aware that there's a little irritation or annoyance thing happening. And then if we're aware of it then, and we just let the clear awareness recognize, and we just sit with that it will dissolve then. And if we catch it as it's about to form, that's the most powerful, because then it doesn't even arise. And then but if we miss it at the first, and then the second, the interim as it's on its way up, here it's at peak performance, right? So if it's anger, already here you're in a state of rage, right? It's much harder to catch it then. It's much harder to just with recognition of clear awareness to allow it to dissolve, because we're engaged, we're involved. And usually with anger, there's a little dramatic production involved. We've got a stage, and it's we're making our speeches about how we're right and the other person's wrong. That whole thing is engaged then. But even then, in the middle of that, that's a very powerful moment to recognize. If you can recognize in the middle of that theatrical production of rage, and sit and just bring clear awareness into, it will dissolve. But there, a slightly more active form of working with clear awareness is what I do. That I actually bring, as if it were a light beam or a fluid form of clear awareness, I'll actually bring it to the thought. And then, if the next phase of a thought, if you haven't caught it at the peak, it'll then start to subside, and that's where you probably have lost your chance to catch it, because it's now dissolving into not seeing it anymore, it's not any force left. But even there, you can catch it. So I'm speaking about it as if it's a rabbit scampering around or something like that, and just out of reach. But clear awareness is seeing this. Your wisdom awareness, your clear awareness is seeing this process. It's maybe not recognizing, but when you call it into an alert state by doing this kind of practice, then it becomes more habitually available to you, that when you find something arising in your mind as you're just going about your day or sitting on your cushion, you can consciously, with or without the gesture physical or just mental, or just a subtle energy in the body, you become present to that inner event. And then you're right there with it, as if you come into the channel yourself, you're right there, and you're there face to face with your own face, and you can then sometimes I sometimes I will saturate the channel. I don't know another way to put it. I'll fill the channel with clear awareness. In other words, I'll flood the channel in a way. This language is, because it's so subtle, the language is funny to try to use this way, but it's not then just a recognizing. I make it active in a way. The same way that particularly with anger or an emotional conceptualization that's really charged for you, that you're really gripped by, I sometimes straighten my posture like this, and then I arch my neck slightly like this, and then I make my gaze not so much a gaze, but a direct look. And I'm unblinking, looking right at the appearance that is causing the disturbance, or the appearance that is the disturbance, and like an eagle, I pounce on it with clear awareness. I go get it. Now, that's my description. Your own experience will guide you as to how to work with that. But when something's really caught you by the back of the neck and is throwing you around, to just sit quietly with it might not be quite enough. You might need to get on its case. In this case, on its case is on your case. And this posture is like coming alert. You can see what happens with my body when I take that. I'm ready. And then here's the injunction I give to myself. Look right at it and don't blink first. And within the body, this is an embodied practice, within the body, as that is happening, there's an alertness in posture and intent, and there is a deep relaxing taking place because it's clear awareness that's doing the work. And there's a deep relaxation at the same time that there's this ready alert. And now, I don't do martial arts, but I think that's a description of what happens with the martial arts. There's a deep relaxation, otherwise you're not ready to move as the conditions require, yeah? And then there's a complete alertness so that you're able to move as conditions require. But this is like an inner art. Yeah? So I'm describing this to you. This is my personal practice because I have found it very helpful. And there are times we need to be on it like that. But the basic practice is the practice of seeing, recognizing, and abiding in clear awareness as things come and go in their natural way. That's to be in the natural state. Thoughts can come and go. We don't have to get involved. They will come and go if we don't get involved. They'll come anyway. They'll go if we don't get involved. Yeah? Does that make sense? Is that useful information? I think so, yeah. I do have a little more difficulty hearing when you're far away.
I think that practice will be very
Start
useful.
again?
I think that practice will be very useful for like real life emotions.
It is. Mm-hmm.
When you're going to use it in that way, in an active way, to like pounce like the eagle on the unwanted emotion or whatever it is, are you thinking of it? Are you picturing it and then using the
recognizing? You're recognizing it, and it's more like registering it. It's not so. It may be visual, it may be auditory, it may be emotional, it may be energetic in the body, and your recognition doesn't even have to be defined as seeing or hearing or.
But you are holding that feeling there instead of trying to let it go.
No, you're not holding it at all.
Oh. You're
not holding it at all. You're okay. Let's let's go into that practice mode and see how we feel, see how it works. So now sitting, gathering within. Okay, now I'm going to just create something. No, I'm not holding on to it. I'm not focusing on it in the same way that I would focus on something that I wanted to see more clearly or understand. I am bringing it into focus with clear awareness. That's a different way of focus. It's not a holding, it's a clarity. And as clear awareness meets disturbance, disturbance resolves. It's like the relationship between truth and falsity. In the presence of truth, falsity falters. So you're not holding anything except an intention and a clarity of presence. Does that work?
Okay, thank you.
And we'll find our own ways with this to some degree. I mean, this is a general process and a general description. But you're right that out in the world, in the ordinary events, is one of the most powerful ways to do this kind of practice. In fact, on the cushion, it's very valuable also because it's a discipline, a training of staying steady. But we're not always on the cushion. In fact, we're rarely on the cushion compared to what the rest of the world, the day looks like, yes? So cultivating it in real-life circumstances, in the ordinary run of events, cultivating on the cushion helps us when we are in the ordinary run of events to have that same clarity of awareness and recognition so that you're in a conversation with somebody and it may become a little heated, and instead of getting caught up in the heat, you're aware of what's happening in your mind. In other words, the inward attention is at attention. And it's not effortful. It's just because you've created a base of that in terms of your practice. Yeah? And in that heated exchange, you might for a moment go like this, just in a very subtle way without anybody seeing or noticing as a reminder, or you can just do it with your mind. You just arc your mind within like this, as if it's just your mind doing it. And that's a way of drawing the mind back within the mind when it starts to leap out. Because it leaps out with pleasure or curiosity or fear or anger or whatever. It leaps out with circumstances and stimuli. And so we just follow Milarepa, who says, just gather your mind within. Yeah. And it's very interesting to me how quickly this practice takes hold in ordinary events. Very quickly, our awareness of this, just in this afternoon and in today's practice, our awareness of this process will reveal itself in the midst of an event of some sort, a conversation, an emotional experience that you're having by yourself. Like a few weeks ago, I was very cranky. Well, I'd been eating a lot of sugar, which will make that happen, right? So I was all cranked up with sugar. And I started to drop something. I dropped. I started to spill something, and I don't know if something is maybe going to break or whatever. And I don't know whether this is too much, but I just wanted to pick it up and throw it through the window. I just really, I wanted to curse and scream. Oh, goody, I'm being applauded for my ignorance. Great. But really, there are times when you just simply want to throw the thing through the window and curse and spit. And I sometimes just make the gesture like that. But this time, my hand went up. I wasn't going to throw anything through the window, but my hand went up just to make the gesture and with a curse, and it stopped right there. And I was fully in practice. That rage, my self-criticism, my being really royally pissed off, and critical of myself and just furious that now I had to get down and clean up the floor, and it just evaporated. And when moments like that occur, you can say, it's working. The practice is with me. So take heart. This is not abstract. This is really to go out into the labyrinth with this. You know, the labyrinth of the crazy world and your crazy mind in the crazy world, right? And see that your basic sanity is being liberated and you're able to be present in your interactions with the world, with others, with the dreaded other. You're able to be present, fully present. As in, I don't remember who you are, but but I remember that I love you. Right? I mean, let's take that all the way. You can say it to a pot that you want to throw on the ground to break it because you were mad that you spilled something from it. It's not an animate being, it's not sentient, we don't think, but it's made up of the same things we are. So I don't know where sentience begins and where it ends. I don't think the pots are alert the same way you're alert, but it's made of the same elements we're made of. So it comes from the Earth Mother as we come from the Earth Mother, you know. There's nothing that isn't from earth and sky that we have in our dwelling, you know. So cultivate that sense of familiarity, intimacy. Cultivate the sense of the intimate infinite. Infinitude is, and here in this moment is how it presents. I want to curse and spit. And in a moment, that dissolves, and I'm present. Now, for me, that's enough of a miracle to make me keep on going. I'm serious, really. I put the thing down on the counter, and I just said, oh, there's my practice. And then yesterday morning, this is real life practice, this is real life stuff here we're talking about. Yesterday morning, I was awakened in my cabin that I'm staying in by the smoke alarm going off. It started at like 3:30 or 4 a.m., and it kept on going, and I can't get up there to do anything about it, wouldn't have known what to do anyway, so I had to wait until my friends were, you know, at the end of their sleeping time so I could call somebody and say, help. But it kept going off, and I felt shattered. It was so... I felt my mind felt like it was shattering in some way. It's such a terrible sound, and it's so blistering. It's just a terrible sound. And I thought, how am I going to sit with my friends in this condition? And I thought, well, there's the mind right there. Now, where's the practice for the mind? Oh, right there. Same place. This is really practical, really practical. Imagine that practice is practical. I want to add an element now to our practice. Oh, the time is extremely expansive and spacious today. It's only 10 past 11. I feel like we've been together for hours. Okay. So I want to bring another element in, which is also very helpful. So let's just take a relaxed posture again. And anytime this is very open here, anytime you have a question or a comment, you just let me know. I mean, so then just, here's the mic, just come up. So again, it's a relaxed posture, and yet it's an erect posture. Erect and relaxed. So like a very healthy flower on the stem, which is firm and very pliant. So that's the spine, the firm, pliant stem. And then the neck is loose, and the head is free to move, like the flower bobbing when the stem is moving with the breeze. So it's erect and relaxed at the same time. Yeah? And now, bring the mind within. So that's the shorthand. Let the mind come within the mind now, and you recognize that that is the inward attention. And let yourself feel yourself register the sensation of that, the sense of it. How does that feel to be in that way? I'm not even going to say that place, but how does it feel to be in that way in your sensate form? That is so perfect, what you just did. Do that again. That is a fullness of presence that is really perfect. Now, with that fullness of presence in the center, recognize a vertical dimension in which that fullness, that energy or light, however you want to see it or name it, you don't even have to name it, is moving up and down from the center of the earth to the center of sky, moving through the vertical channel in your body. And your body and mind are not separate, so to say in the body is too precise, but we sense it. It's in the sensate form, that we sense the energy moving up and down, or the light flowing up and down. So that vertical column of energy is established and recognized. It's already always there, and now we recognize it. This is with eyes closed or open, as you wish. And just run that energy up and down for a while. Feel it. And now, from the heart, energy goes out through the arms extended as mine are now. Hands, the palms open, upward or downward. Let's try upward first. Now that energy is moving back and forth through this horizontal channel. And feel a certain tingling in the palm and then the fingers as the energy moves and reaches that. And now the energy goes out from the hands. You can imagine it as light or simply feel it as pulses of energy. And now, the gesture that we've practiced, bring the hand like this. They meet in the heart. Those two dimensions of energy or light, consciousness, awareness, meet like this in the heart. This is earth and sky. This is lineage. Right? This is the lineage of truth and love, descending and rising and ascending, and the wisdom from the earth, rising energy of lineage descending, and it meets in the heart with the energy of bodhicitta. This is the extension into the world of conscious awareness and the intention to be with, to be present in, to give and receive. It's both. Yeah? Giving and receiving. This is our activity dimension in the world. Hands outstretched to save them all. And very free movement. I don't want to knock over the flowers, but very free movement. And relax the arms as you move. And very easily it comes back just like this. It's almost like a dance form with the hands, comes back. And again, the mind is reminded, we are reminded to be aware of mind resting within mind. And now with no other transition, just gesture, bring your mind within, sit again. And now those two channels of energy are open, vibrant, and luminous. Vertical and horizontal meeting in the heart. We are stable. We're not rigid. We can move easily, but we are stable. When a disturbing thought form arises now, not a problem. Love moves on the channel that's horizontal, back and forth out into the world, and meets the central channel, the wisdom channel. Mind resting within mind. Anything can arise, come and go, and we are stable. And if we were to stand, Rosemary, would you stand? Come here to the center here in front of the shrine. And form the cross, the stabilizing cross, and now establish the movement of the energies in the upward and the horizontal. And now start creating a globe out of that in whatever steps you want to make, however you want to do that. So it becomes fully three-dimensional. I'm thinking that this is, although I don't know this, I'm thinking that this is the basis from which spring all the sacred forms of dance and movement. And there is in the world of art, visual art, there is a figure, Bavaceles, a figure within a circle. The figure stands legs apart. Can you see my legs and the hands like this? So it's like an X almost. And that's essentially the same thing, the same image that we just saw made three-dimensional. It's motion within a stable configuration. The center doesn't move. We move around the center. The center is our true nature. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything. We move around. We blink and we don't recognize. We recognize and we blink again. it's this, what we just saw pictured here in Rosemary's movement and experienced in our own inner awareness, is union. The union of the poles, the union of movement and stillness, the union of aspiration and expression. This is why people talk about the whole. It is a whole. We are a whole. There are parts. Fortunately, there are moving parts, but they're parts of a whole. And this gathering the mind within the mind can recognize how movement occurs within the mind, and the mind changes the condition, but it doesn't change essence. So let's do another round of this with the gong. Gathering within, and then gazing within. A very open, relaxed gaze. And the reason we do it with the eyes open is so we can see better. With the eyes closed, we tend to go off into la-la. You know, we have beautiful visions and then we want to express them. And so this is just about seeing, cutting through. Right? And so then, once balanced and settled in a sense within, then experiencing directly these two dimensions of movement and awareness. And the next element is seeing what's seeing them. Okay? Experiencing, recognizing, and then what sees this? Now, without changing your posture, let your gaze come up so that you're looking more ahead of you than down. Don't raise your gaze above the horizon. 45 degrees is good. And be aware that you're gazing without and within simultaneously. Now, without moving your hands, make the energetic gesture of drawing within. And feel the spine lengthen. And the chest open. And the neck arch a little. And the gaze remains very steady. Now move the gaze so that it's gazing very clearly within. Just accentuate that a little. Be aware of the energy up and down. You're looking at your own mind. Appearances are your own mind. The external appearance that your eyes are seeing without focusing on, those external appearances are like a mirror for you. They're showing you your mind. As we stabilize and refine this practice over time, mind becomes clear, and gazing outerly is like looking in a mirror. Actually, a direct experience of looking in a mirror. That appearances really are like a reflection for you. You see your own mind as if you were looking directly at it in a mirror. And you will recognize this experience when you have it because it's been described for you. And you'll say, oh, it is a mirror. Did you enjoy that? It's very enjoyable, isn't it? Yeah. You're making a face, Rosemary. Did you not enjoy it? Well, we enjoyed you. want to show any visual representation? Okay, just thought I'd check. Okay. Don't take anybody's word for it. Practice. And this kind of practice, I mean, there are many ways of naming or describing, identifying the kind of practice that we're approximating here or that we're working our way into. It could be called nature of mind. In the Tibetan tradition, it's called nature of mind, the practice of direct practice on awareness. Mahamudra Dzogchen, but Garchen Rinpoche has increasingly been calling it clear awareness, and I have been also, because it's so inclusive. You don't have to have a special initiation or anything. You know, it's just anybody can practice on clear awareness, because clear awareness is what is. You know, and I like that because I never know what the background is of people who are coming to me, and I want to. You know, hold each one of you close, you know. So I want to welcome everybody, and this practice is completely accessible to anybody. And you'll see that more and more as you go along, because you'll be able to give others something of this too as time goes by. Just to say, well, just look at your own mind and see what you see. That's, you don't say, this is a Buddhist teaching that I got from, you know. We don't have to do that. We just share what we find helpful. We can share it with others, unless your teacher tells you this is not to be shared. So I want to say something about dying. An obvious segue, right? So in the Tibetan tradition, and I don't think all of you are in this tradition all the time, but everybody has a taste of it, I think. So the Tibetan lineages are experts in guiding people through the process of dying and through the processes that occur and unfold after, between death and rebirth. And there is a book called the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is a funny title, but it's used in the United States and other places as well. But the more correct title is The Teachings on the Bardos. The Bardos are the gaps between different states of being and existence, or states of existence. And the bardo between death and rebirth is what is being given in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, with very careful, precise instructions for how to navigate that, how to traverse that terrain in order to avoid rebirth and to attain enlightenment. And it's got a lot of very abstruse, esoteric instructions that refer to specific practices in the tradition, but there are also pith instructions throughout this book. This is a terma, a treasure discovered by Guru Padmasambhava, and it's a teaching of Guru Padmasambhava. Then throughout the book are also the pith instructions for each stage of moving through the bardo, about how to work with the appearances, whether they're sound or visual or whatever other kinds of appearances arise, that are opportunities either for seeing clearly their nature directly as we're practicing for, or getting confused further by the appearances and missing that moment for complete awakening. So it's like, when you have a tennis ball that's brand new and you toss it up in the air, it bounces quite high as it gradually resolves and ends up going blah, 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 blah. And each height is a little lower than the height before. It's kind of like that. That's a funny kind of analogy to make, but this is kind of the way the instructions on the bardo strike me sometimes, that at the moment of death, if you are prepared, it's face to face. You see you see your true nature, and you awaken, basically. It's liberation upon recognition. It's liberation upon seeing, basically. That's the subtitle, liberation upon seeing. And the core instruction for this entire period of navigating the bardo between death and rebirth is, and this is the precise instruction at every stage, presented differently, but the pith instruction at every stage of the bardo, of this particular bardo, is recognize all appearances as reflections of your own mind. Recognize all appearances as reflections of your own mind. Do you see where I'm going here? This practice is the way we train for that. We want to be able to master this in our lifetime so that when the time comes, whether it comes tomorrow or 70 years down the road, we're there, we're ready. We have the practice in hand so that at the time of death, instantly we recognize and are liberated. The core teaching that goes along with the instruction is this: recognition and liberation are simultaneous. It just keeps being repeated. Recognition and liberation are simultaneous. And so that situates us to bring our practice that we're doing as these, ordinary people, you and I. Well, actually, we're not, because we're on the Bodhisattva path, so we're already not completely ordinary. But for Bodhisattvas, I would say I'm fairly ordinary, and you can say what you want about yourself, but I think you're pretty special, so I might not say you're ordinary. But, we're relatively ordinary in that we're not fully accomplished. At least, I don't think so, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't stake a claim to that. I know I'm not. I don't know about you. But we can apply what we're doing here this weekend, and particularly today, we can apply this to the path from now on. We're practicing for liberation. We're not practicing to have a nice meditation. We're practicing for liberation. And this is the practice. I mean, there are many other ways to do what we're doing. This is not the only way. This is my particular sort of barbarish way of conveying. And there are many ways that are, some of the formal ways are just magnificent, with great liturgy and beautiful tunes and so on. I just know that life is very temporary. In an instant, you could be gone. I want to catch you while you're still here, and I might only have this one chance. Right? Might not have another chance. I might be gone, or you might be gone. But this is what you want to have with you on your deathbed, if you're lucky enough to have a bed at that point. And there's no guarantee, right? But have this practice in hand. So that means every day of your life between now and the time you leave, practice this. Practice clear awareness. Practice gathering the mind within the mind. Practice offering everything for the liberation of all beings. Cultivate limitless compassion and love. Limitless. And if then you don't even remember anything about clear awareness, your love is going to be the recognizer. You know what I wanted to say next? And then I saw myself wanting to say it. Here's what I wanted to say next. I mean this. Like, I really mean this. It's like your mother saying, I really mean this. So there you have it. That's all I got. The rest of the day we'll just practice more, or depending on what the weather does, maybe be outside. If it gets overcast enough that there's not a heavy sun, we can be outside again. I wanted last night to stay longer together, but it was really dangerous out there. And then I thought, well, we could have gone into the temple, but actually we would have been in total darkness because the lights went out shortly. By the time I got to my cabin, there was no electricity. And then I thought, well, gosh, I don't have a way to contact my friends to say, let's meet at dawn on the porch. But I would have loved to have done that with you. Instead, I went out and took a walk and circumambulated the stupa. If you haven't gone to the stupa at the end of the peninsula, that's wonderful. And if you have the opportunity to circumambulate this stupa here has in its central column, it has a central column as we have a central column. It has precious and sacred substances from some of the great masters. So it has a particular power that Garchen Rinpoche described to us in a certain way as it was being prepared. He said that if you have or you know of anyone who has illness of body or mind or emotions, or even if there's a place where there is disturbance, to circumambulate this stupa with prayers of aspiration and supplication, that those beings and those places may be cleared of obscuration and obstruction and harm and illness and of any kind, that this is a powerful, powerful place to do that kind of prayer and supplication as you walk around clockwise. And once having done that, here, with this stupa, this physical representation, you will have access to that no matter where you are. You can refer to that stupa in your mind, and in your mind circumambulate, and again repeat those aspirations and prayers for the particular individuals, including yourself, who have need of intervention of that kind, of a sacred kind, that may bring healing that's visible, may bring healing at levels that have to do with karmic formation, or may bring healing that we don't ever recognize, but with confidence and certainty in the power of the aspirations of the Buddhas whose relics are here, and of our contemporary Buddha aspirations, we know that benefit is being given. Whether we ever see a distinct and identifiable outcome is completely irrelevant. Motivation is everything. Motivation is everything. That's why we generate bodhicitta. That is motivation. I'm checking to see if I've left anything out. Oh yeah. You know what's really useful on the path? Because this is not easy stuff we're talking about, right? If we cultivate the willingness and the ability to see our minds, we're going to see everything. We're longing to see the nature of mind, the true nature. We're longing for that. So we're doing practice. In the meantime, we're going to see the condition of our minds. And it's going to have everything in it. It'll be sometimes very painful and disturbing. You'll see how you've caused harm. And then you know what you do? You just confess that with regret. You just confess it with regret. Maybe you have a picture of your Lama. You can have that picture in front of you. If you want to confess to someone, you confess. But you don't have to confess to an individual. Just confess. And with regret, and then resolve not to cause harm in that way again. And preferably not to cause any harm at all, but you can be specific. We don't have to be totally globalizing everything immediately. And then you rely upon what you have faith in, what you have certainty about. You rely on that, and then on whatever practices you have to support you in that. And that practice is given in detail in the back of this book. And also you might find it on the internet. It's called excuse me. It's four thoughts. But what are the...
4 powers?
Thank you, the 4 opponent powers. The 4 opponent powers, thank you so much. Because it was going to take a minute. It's in an appendix. It's easier to find an appendix than something in the middle of the book. The 4 opponent powers, meaning they're the powers that oppose and vanquish the harming tendencies and their effects. So just look up the 4 opponent powers or see the appendix in that book. Don't be afraid of being afraid when you see the contents of your mind and its condition. Don't be afraid of your fear to see that. It's an appearance. When it meets clear awareness, it is no more. You have the power here. Isn't there some kind of popular song that says you got the power or something?
Power of love. Huey Lewis in the news. Power of love.
No, I was thinking of something a little rockier. You got the power. You got the love. Something like that. Play on the path. I'm dancing and singing around my place all the time. Anybody have anything you want to say? I don't know what we're going to do this afternoon. We'll find out when we get here. And I note that the lunch is through 1 o'clock. After you take your lunch, even if the weather is not too friendly, find a way to be outside a little bit. Maybe that'll be the time that you do the circuit of the 37 Bodhisattva practices. But all of this land is filled with the blessings of the great practitioners who've been here. Garchen Rinpoche, most notably, our Lama. And we're walking in their radiant shadow. The path we're walking in is illumined by the aspirations and practice of really great practitioners. And it can be quite intimate for us because we know some of these great practitioners. We've sat with some of these great masters of this age, some of the greatest masters, both male and female of this age, have been people that some of us have sat with, and their blessings permeate this land. Those who've been here to visit, the blessings permeate the land. And my native teacher, Dahani Wahu, talked about how when the cultures of the indigenous nations of this continent were being destroyed, the wisdom and love of their sacred traditions might have appeared to have been destroyed, but because wisdom is not a physical thing, it couldn't be destroyed. It was, and some of the artifacts of it were hidden, the same way Padmasambhava hid terma, treasure texts, were hidden in various places, and some of the people hid even in empty logs. They would crawl into the empty logs and hide. But as you know, as we all know who are from this culture and living on this continent, we all know that there was tremendous destruction of life and culture. And that's what's referred to in the term the sacred hoop, means the sacred hoop of wisdom and continuity of wisdom, guidance and instruction and realization. And so when the cultures were broken, it was also said the sacred hoop was broken. And so many of the contemporary teachings in the indigenous traditions are about really mending the sacred hoop, bringing it back together again. And one of the reasons that is possible is that wisdom doesn't die. And so Dahaiwahu said, there are people who have been raised from childhood to be the ones who are capable of retrieving that, and also that wisdom is in the earth. These are earth wisdom traditions that I'm speaking of, the indigenous, that the wisdom's in the earth. And as you walk on the sacred lands, the lands where the practices have been done, the prayers have been given, the people have been buried, the wisdom will come up through the soles of your feet if you're one of those who's receptive. I take great heart from that. And when I moved from the East Coast to here, to the Southwest, I don't know if it was that teaching that was resonating for me or what, but I started to walk differently. The instant I put my feet on the ground in Flagstaff, Arizona, my gait changed. The very instant, I mean, I noticed it. It was like I was rolling on the land instead of stepping. There was something different, and that is still the case. And these are sacred lands that we're on. This land that we're on here, we were told when we came here, when we looked at it, we were told that it was a ceremonial place. So this land is saturated with sacred ceremony and with sacred intention. Saturated. So walk on it. But nobody in Arizona is ever going to want you to step out on the soil of Arizona in your bare feet. Unless somebody's really, really worked that terrain with. There's a saying in Arizona, if you've been outside for 5 minutes and it doesn't hurt yet, you're not in Arizona. But it's saturated, so step out on the land, okay? And now it's time for lunch. And again, we'll dedicate, do you remember about dedication, what I said yesterday? Always dedicate the merit for the liberation of all. And we'll just do that each in our own way right now before we get up, just in whatever language you want to use. We dedicate our merit, which is love. Okay. Thank you so much. Your attention has been like a jewel, just like a jewel, bright and shining and very generous attention. Thank you so much. So have a good lunch, and I'll see you too. Okay? We'll meet here, and then what happens, we don't know yet.